been a lot of discussion here about the health information exchanges and the interaction between different stakeholder groups, who controls information. I'm interested in the lessons that you've learned at Kaiser Permanente's interaction with different HIEs, different stakeholders. How have you addressed the whole issue of controls, privacy, who gets access to what? Those sorts of issues seem to be huge, big bottlenecks and problems that we're still all trying to figure out. What are your lessons that you've learned?
Yeah, you know, I'm not particularly involved in those particular projects, to be honest. Those are negotiated separately based on who we're working with. What I can say, though, is there's been a lot of discussion today about patient portals and disappointment that they're not used as often. And I think that's a good place for change management, because what we need to do is understand what the consumer is looking for, what kind of value a patient portal will bring them. And if a patient is going to the portal and the information isn't there, that first experience may sour them and may not motivate them to go back. So I think it's really important that if you're going to have the portal, to understand what people need and to make sure the information's accurate, and that the clinician's actually doing his or her part on their end to have that virtual relationship with a consumer.
Well, that's a good point, because a lot of what you're focused on is engagement, isn't it?
Yes.
At the clinician level, perhaps as they deal with patients. So you mentioned some warning signs. Can you tell us very quickly, what are the warning signs that suggest that you've missed that focus?
Well, I think ultimately operations has to own the system. And too often you'll see project teams that develop the system and they just want to get it up and running and get it on time and on budget. But then the system isn't used the right way, or it isn't built effectively because the right people weren't at the table. What you need, I think, is the operations group driving the decisions so that their workflows are driving the technology. The technology isn't driving operations.
How hard is that
It's very difficult, because you really have to explain what it means to own a system. And it's hard once you lose credibility, it's hard to gain it back. And so my recommendation is build those partnerships from the very start. Let them even involved in the selection of the system so they feel like they can own it. If they don't have any kind of feeling of ownership, they're not going to be good partners through the project.